Hello, Boom Nation. I am Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert, and I'm very excited to be your featured speaker segment this week. So tonight we are going to talk about how big is your bounce. Now, if you have found me online, you probably have heard me talking a lot about this lately. If you haven't, go to Jackie Mott Mindset and Empowerment Expert on Facebook, and you'll get all kinds of really good stuff. I do a mindful moment most mornings, and you'll see all kinds of really great stuff going on over there. So how big is your bounce actually came to me last week. I am one of these people, as you can probably tell from, looking behind me, I'm one of these people who very much believes that what we surround ourselves with in our world actually helps us create our reality. So I have all over my office, clearly behind me, and also on my fridge, I've got all of these magnets with these lovely sayings, these, supportive thoughts and that sort of stuff. So last week, oh yes, Bruce is pointing out, he's got a sign on the wall that says, "The mountains are calling and I must go." Isn't that wonderful? Bruce is very into that stuff. If you haven't met him yet, you must. He's such a brilliant man. One of my favorite men on the planet, actually.
Thank you.
So here's what happened. I don't even know which day it was, so I'm not going to try to figure that out. But one day last week, I was getting myself a cup of coffee in the morning, and I went into the fridge to get my milk, and on my freezer in front of me are many, many different magnets and things that I've laminated and hung up there and so on and so forth. And I've done that very purposely. Again, what we surround ourselves with helps us to create our reality. So that particular morning, one of these magnets caught my attention, and it's something like, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down, it matters how many times you get back up. So this is a really great thing for us to play with, right? Because as long as you just get back up one more time, every single time you get knocked down, one more time, that's all you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen next week or next year. You need to worry about what's happening right now and find that within yourself. I'm going to give you just one really yummy tip to help you with that. You have already a 100% success rate of surviving every single thing that has come your way throughout your lifetime. I'm going to say that again. You have a 100% success rate. I want you to really be with that for a moment. Breathe it in. Chew on that. Maybe write it down and think about it later when you're going to bed, or maybe when you're in the shower, because that's where this idea came to me. So I saw this little magnet on my fridge, and I saw this, it matters how many times you get back up. And that made me kind of go, there've been some things going a little bit cockeyed in my world the last little while. It happens to every one of us. We all have these times where things kind of hit us that we're not quite sure what to do with. And something like that had happened just a few days really before this day happened. And so I got into the shower after I had my cup of coffee, and all of a sudden I had this sort of vision of different balls, all kinds of different balls, and they were bouncing. So there were, things like basketballs and tennis balls, and, those really hard, I think they're about that big, those rubber balls. At least they had them when I was a kid. And, you'd throw it as hard as you can on the ground, and then it would just go flying all over the place. And that was fun as a kid, right? Unless you broke a window, which is probably not the greatest idea. But the point that I'm trying to make is all of these balls were bouncing, but they were bouncing differently. And so what I was pondering as I was processing this whole idea was, how big is your bounce? How big is your bounce? So we have all kinds of different balls, right? There are things like basketballs or tennis balls, or like I said, those really hard rubber balls that bounce really high. There are all kinds of different balls out there, and they're made of different materials. They're designed differently. With a basketball, for example, if you haven't inflated it to the proper pressure, it's not going to bounce very well at all. If you inflate it, then it's probably going to bounce a little bit differently than it's meant to as well. So it's all of these different factors that come together, the pressure, the materials, the hardness of the ball, what it's made out of, all of that stuff is important when you think about balls bouncing. We have balls that are made that are not really meant for bouncing. Think about baseballs or soccer balls. I mean, they do bounce, but it takes quite a lot of force to cause them to bounce with any height at all, right? So I used to play baseball when I was younger. I was actually pretty good. I was a third baseman, and they called me, what did they call me? The Hoover, because nothing got by me. It was fun. It was fun. So the point that I'm trying to make is that you have to hit a ball really, really hard and at just the right angle to get it to go up high enough for it to bounce. Do you see what I'm saying? Most of the time, the baseballs will go sort of a little bit up or level or even right running across the ground. And then they'll roll for a little while and they stop, right? So you might get a couple of bounces out of a really good hit. You might get a couple of really good bounces out of that. Football, same way. Football is made in this shape for a specific reason. And when if you've ever played with a football, you know that it's really hard to predict where it's going to go flying if it hits the ground, right? As long as you keep it in the air, it's pretty easy to see where it's going. But once it starts to bounce, it'll go wherever it goes, right? And that's because of the shape of it. So here's the thing. How big is your bounce? So this entire conversation that we're going to have this evening is about resiliency. Resiliency is like a muscle. It's like a muscle that we can build up. And the thing with building muscle, maybe you don't know this yet, but you're going to find out right now. The reason that our muscles get stronger is because as we work them, there are these little micro tears that happen in the tissue. And as that heals, that's what builds the muscle. Resiliency is a very similar thing. It will not get stronger. It will not get better unless you use it.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
So that's one of those sort of tough lessons, is that we have to go through difficult times in order to become resilient beings. Okay. But I'm going to remind you, 100% success rate. The reason I know you have a 100% success rate is because you are here. You're breathing. You're still upright. You are still alive. You are still moving forward with your life. And that is the only proof I need that you have survived every single thing that has ever happened. Do you see what I'm saying? So follow this idea. Follow this idea. I am already successful. I am already strong. I am already resilient. And because I know that I've survived everything else that's ever happened, I can really start to believe, even just a little bit, that I'm going to find my way through whatever comes my way. I'm going to find a way through anything that happens. Do you see what I'm saying? I want you to just please absorb some of that energy. You are already a success. You are already strong and resilient and more powerful probably than you even realize. Play with that as we go through tonight. And I'm going to invite you to just give that some thought over the next week or two. Find me on Facebook, please, and let me know what you come up with. Meditate with that, pray with that, just sit with it in nature and be quiet with it for a few minutes and see what starts to shift in your world. I would love to hear how you make out with that. So again, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert on Facebook. Find me there, send a message, like and follow the page, whatever works for you, but let me know what you come up with, because this little piece that we are talking about tonight can shift your entire world. If you are willing to embrace it, if you are willing to challenge the thoughts that might hold you back from believing all of those things, if you are willing to do that, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, and Bruce has just reminded me also, you can find it on, what was that? On give2get.com dot something. Hold on just a second, guys. Give me 1 second. Give to get life. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
We've got .com and we've got .life, but give to get too. And where I'm going with that, I'm just going to jump in, Jackie. I apologize for hijacking your show here.
That's a little bit.
Okay. They can find you on give2get.com as well too. And we've already got a number of people that absolutely love what you stand for, love who you are, love your message, are embracing your message and making a difference in their lives. So absolutely, they can go to your website, and we want them to go there. We want them to go to Give to Get as well too, and see you on both places. Quite frankly, get a double dose of Jackie.
There you go. And don't forget, we've got the podcast too. So Fridays I go live on Inspired Choices Network at 1 p.m. Eastern, and you can find me there. Time to Rise and Thrive. All of these things, my friends, every single one of them that I am bringing to your attention right now is completely free of charge, with the exception of the Give to Get membership, but you're already paying for that anyway, right? You're here. So I know you're already paying for that anyway. So make use of the resources that are available to you. Find people who speak a language that you can hear and understand and absorb in a positive way. Find those people. We are everywhere, I promise you. There are people like myself and Bruce all over this world. So find the people who speak to you in a way that you can understand and follow us. These things do not have to cost a lot of money. And that's a wonderful thing as well. So now we're going to get back to our How Big Is Your Bounce? So as I was processing this whole idea of these bouncing balls and different types of balls with different materials and different pressures and so on and so forth, it just made me just ponder this idea of, how big is it? How big do I bounce? How big do I bounce? Am I somebody who's like Humpty Dumpty, who gets knocked off the wall and I shatter into a million pieces? And it doesn't matter who comes along to try to help me, they can never put me back together again. Am I like that? Or am I somebody who bounces and then sort of, maybe I'm back up on my knees, but I still need to pull myself up? And if that's all you've got, honey, that is okay. Oh, Bruce says, like Tigger. Exactly. Tigger is one of my favorite characters. Awesome. Or are you somebody that bounces like straight back up onto your feet and ready to go, ready to take on to the world? Or maybe you're like me and you fall down, because I do. Sometimes I fall down really hard. But when I get back up, I have taken every single piece that I can learn from whatever that experience was, every single piece. And that causes me to not even hit my feet. I hit my feet and I rise. Do you see what I'm saying? Because as you grow, as you learn, as you listen to the people who can speak a language that you can understand, who are going to remind you that you are amazing and strong and resilient and successful right now. As you listen to those people and you let those things just sort of settle in, let them sort of filter through all of the noise. This is why I'm saying maybe when you lay down in bed, it's a good time for you to sort of ponder some of these thoughts. Might actually help you sleep a little bit better too when you get into that space of, wow, I really am successful. Jackie may be actually onto something. Just saying. Or go and be in nature. I'm telling you, there are, I'll share with you some of my stuff that I do when I get, when my brain just gets a little bit too busy, because it happens. I have all of these ideas sometimes, and all of these people and all of these opportunities that are just surrounding me. And sometimes I need to quiet things down a little bit so that I can actually be with things and see how they feel and see what feels like a good direction, or maybe there's like a great big X and this is not the right direction for me to go. So some of the things that I do when that happens, and really weird, really weird, is I like to do dishes. It is the strangest thing, but there is something about, I think it's like the warm water and all the suds, and it's kind of a mindless task, right? So I can sort of disengage my brain for a few moments and do something that soothes me and gives me that little spot of peace. So for me, doing the dishes is one of them. Taking my dog for a walk in a beautiful park or down a trail or something like that is also something that really works well for me. And I will give you just one of my big secrets for having a good night's sleep: gratitude prayers. Gratitude prayers. I started doing this, I don't even know when. I'm going to say 20, maybe closer to 30 years ago. I was going through a really difficult time in my world. And one night I laid down in bed and my brain was just racing with all of the problems and all of the stress and all of the upset, and what was I going to do and how was I going to do it, and what if that happened, and what, right? Because that happens to us. It just goes zzz, and we need to slow it down. We need to slow it down. So I don't know what happened this one night, and it doesn't have to be a prayer. I have no opinion about your belief systems or religions or anything like that. It doesn't even have to be that. It can be, call it a meditation, call it a gratitude quiet time, whatever you want to call it. But what my belief system is that there is a higher power. And therefore, I started to pray and I started to think about, how was I going to stop all of this crazy that was happening in my head so that I could actually fall asleep? I had a very young boy at the time, and I needed to be, little boys are busy. So I very much needed to be awake while he was up. So this one night I'm laying in bed and I just, for some reason, I started to think about all of the things, even in the midst of all of the trouble, even in the midst of the painful circumstances. How blessed am I that I have this little boy who needs his mom? How big a blessing is it that I have that? And then I thought, oh my goodness. And, we have this beautiful dog and she's so sweet. And how blessed am I that I have that? And I have a family who loves me, and I have wonderful friends, and I have a roof over my head, and I have food and I have clothing and I have everything that I need. Do you see what I'm saying? I have everything that I need. So if you ever find yourself in one of those spaces where that brain just will not get out of whatever the difficulties are that you're currently working with, very quickly will shift your energy if you take a moment and find three things that you can be grateful for. And some days are tough. And if you're having a tough day, what about, what? I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I'm grateful that I'm still breathing. I'm grateful that I have another chance to do something that might shift the difficulties in my world. What about that? Even if that's all you can find, how amazing is it that you have another day, that you have another chance, that You've fallen down, but you get the choice to get back up one more time. How wonderful is that? The life that you have is precious. And I know I'm going off a little bit over here, but the life that you have is precious. And if that is the only thing you can find today to be grateful for, celebrate. Celebrate how blessed you are, because there are many, many, many people out there who don't have just those simple things that I listed. They don't have the people around them. They don't have a home. They don't have the things that they need. So whatever you have, find 3 things. There is no faster way that I have ever found to shift your energy or shift your mind when you get into a dark spot. 3 things. That's it. Take a few minutes to sit with that. If you're going to bed, I promise you, you will probably fall asleep in a very peaceful way if you started out with your gratitude. When I get into that spot, I just start listing things. And I know, Bruce, this is one of the exercises that we used to do in the group that you facilitated, but I was doing it years before that. And I promise you, there are times when my God, my list can get very, very long. Very, very long. I'm grateful that the sun rose. I'm grateful that the moon rose. I'm grateful, whatever. It doesn't have to be big. It does not have to be big. So that's sort of a freebie. That wasn't actually part of the plan for tonight. Go ahead and practice some purposeful gratitude and see if things don't start to shift. So do you see, we're already talking about so many little tiny things that you can shift that will help you to be in a more positive frame of mind, to have more belief in yourself, to have more belief in what might be possible for you. What might be possible for you? What would you like to have? You know, Bruce and I were talking on the phone, I think it was last week, and there was a book that came up in my mind when we were talking. And I said, oh, there's this book and it's called The Slight Edge. Have you ever heard of it? And of course, Bruce has heard of it. It's one that he's read many times. And this book is so brilliant because it talks about making little micro shifts. And you see what happens when you make enough little micro shifts, you can turn the whole bloody thing completely around. Do you understand what I'm saying? Little tiny shifts. One of the things that I remember about that book was 10 pages of a good book. So what they were talking about was how long does it take you to make one of these micro shifts? So if you were in a position where you committed to and followed through with reading 10 pages of a good book, and I'm going to qualify, the good book would be anything that would cause you to challenge your thinking, to learn something new. So we're not talking about like Danielle Steele. I mean, that's great for relaxation, absolutely. But we're not talking about those types of books. We're talking about something that actually challenges you to think or to shift a perspective. 10 pages. So how many days are there in a year? 365 days. So over the course of a year, you have read very nearly 4,000 pages just by reading 10 pages a day, right? Shift, shift, shift. Micro shifts will get you there. It might take a bit of time, and that's okay. This is not a race. Well, maybe it's a marathon, hey? The personal development journey, let's call that a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a sprint. You can't expect to get there in 5 minutes flat. Okay, so this is something that, because you're here, I know you are committed to becoming the best version of you that you can be. And we are all here to support that. Bruce has been fantastic for me. He has just been such a supportive human being in my world. And that's part of the reason why I have so much thought and care and respect for him. And that is what we are all here for. Every one of us that is presenting is here because we want to support you on whatever your journey is. So let's get back to these bouncing balls. Are you picturing the bouncing yet? Are you starting to think about, yes, Bruce? I know Bruce, actually, he's quite athletic. So I'm sure he's probably got more experience with some balls than I have, but we're thinking about this, right? So where are you? And I don't want you to go there from like a place of judgment. This is just sort of a, let's just be curious for a minute. Okay. So this is your first thing. You need to start to think about, where am I right now? Where am I right now? Am I Humpty Dumpty? Or am I that person who soars into the air every time I hit the ground? Where are you? I mean, those are sort of the two extremes. Where are you on that scale? And it's important for you to be honest with yourself about this, okay? Where are you on that scale? And when you figure that out, we're going to go through a few things here to help you with figuring this out. So I don't think I said this at the beginning of at the beginning of the talk today, but my shtick, my thing that I work with people is what I call the subliminal soundtrack. So really quickly, what the subliminal soundtrack is, it's a loop of messages that plays in the back of your mind all day, every day. It's made up of little bits of information that you've picked up throughout the course of your life. And we store that information back there on that subliminal soundtrack. So every single relationship, every single lesson, every single circumstance, every single experience you have ever had in your life has given you little bits of information that are now stored back there. Your subliminal soundtrack, and this is why it's so important for us to understand about this. This is where our belief systems come from. So whatever your belief systems are based on the information that you are currently carrying around on that subliminal soundtrack. So what we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. I want you to think about a situation where two people experience the same thing. And a really easy way to see this is if you're on social media. Facebook is a great place for you to think about, okay? So I put something up that I think is really funny. One of those pictures with the words on it. I think they call it a meme. So I put a picture up on my Facebook and I think it's really funny. Now, two of my friends see that and one of them goes, "Oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen." And the other friend says, "That's very offensive." Do you see what I'm saying? Exactly the same circumstance, exactly the same picture, exactly the same, well, maybe a different relationship, because, I like funny people, but at any rate, it is shown to them by exactly the same person with exactly the same intent, and it is received completely differently. That is because of their subliminal soundtrack. That's what it is. So it will affect every single part of your life. It will affect your belief in yourself, your worthiness, your deserving, your abilities, your capabilities, everything, what is possible for you in this world. It will affect your money flows. What does it mean to love or be loved, to have money or not have money? All of that and everything else is based on what's going on back there. So if you're someone who's like that Humpty Dumpty and you fall down and you crack into a million pieces and we can't ever put you back together again, what I want you to hear right now is that we can change that. We can change the stuff that's going on back there that causes you to go into that catastrophe mode. I have someone in my world and love her dearly. And every once in a while I'm talking and I'm thinking, oh, wow, here we go. Chicken Little again. So Chicken Little, if you remember the story, maybe some of you won't, but Google it. Chicken Little is a chicken who runs around the barnyard screaming, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling." Well, clearly the sky's not falling, right? But we can sometimes choose to go into that space where, oh, catastrophe, right? So if that is where you are right now, it's okay. I don't want you to beat yourself up. But what you need to do is you need to start to shift that thinking. Maybe some gratitude would be a great place to start. Maybe being part of this Give to Get membership will be very, very good for you because of the resources that are available. So just think about that for a second. If you're somebody who believes that you're not strong enough, that you can't stand on your own 2 feet, that you aren't worthy of good things, whatever those sorts of messages, you may have come by them very honestly. And I am not here to judge. Judging gets us nowhere with this, okay? But if you are somebody that has those sorts of beliefs about yourself, then you are likely going to be sort of on that Humpty Dumpty end of the scale. Do you see what I'm saying? But if you are somebody who listens, who heard what I said about 100% success, about strength, about courage, about resilience that you already have, you just haven't recognized it yet. If you're that person like me, then you will begin to build a bulletproof belief in yourself. Bulletproof belief. So that means that it does not matter. It does not matter what other people say. It does not matter what other people do. It does not matter what, maybe you make a mistake. It does not matter. You believe in yourself to such a degree that none of that has any importance. You still show up, you still do the best you can. When you have a bulletproof belief in yourself, you are working on this all the time. You are paying attention to what's going on in your mind and purposely going through the process of shifting that into a more positive place, into a place where you just know that everything is going to be okay. So I'm going to share with you one of the hard truths. When we hit these difficult circumstances, there are two choices. Actually, there are three. I'm sorry, there are three. So the first choice is that you can fall down and stay there, right? The second choice is you can choose to get back up. And the third is that you really need to understand that if it doesn't kill you, you're going to survive it. And I know that seems really drastic. Okay. And most of us probably haven't ever really faced, those, what do they call those? Like those death defying moments, or you understand what I'm saying? That moment where our actual life has been in danger. Most of us haven't probably faced very many of those. You may have faced some, but those are the two things that can happen, really, right? Either you will live through it or you won't. And if you don't, none of this really matters anyway, does it? Like truly, none of this really matters if we don't survive it. So we always need to be moving in the direction of, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to find my way through this. Do you understand what I'm saying? Where you go with that is that bulletproof belief. Think about some of the things that you faced in your life, whatever they are. Maybe you've lost people that you cared about. Maybe you've lost jobs. Maybe, you've even lost a pile of money, or whatever the case may be. We've all lost something throughout our lives, right? So think about that for just a second. A couple of those things, how hard were they to get through? But you're still here, aren't you? You are still here. You are still bouncing. You are still bouncing. And if you would like to get even stronger in that bounce back, you are in the right place. So I would like to share with you just a few things that I have sort of realized about this process of the bounce back. So the first one, I would never encourage you not to feel your feelings, especially when you are in a position where maybe you've lost a person who's very, very important to you, or whatever the circumstances might be. There are times when allowing ourselves a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of space is precisely the thing that will help us to move forward. Sometimes we have to slow down in order to speed up. So if you're in a position where you've gone through something that has created a lot of pain for you, allow yourself some time, okay? Allow yourself some time and some space to process those feelings, to allow those feelings to work their way through. So I'll share with you really quickly. When we lost my sister, and if you've seen me speak before, then you know that that happened a while back. So I think we're coming up on 10 years. We're coming up on 10 years. And when that happened, I really fell and I did not get back up for a while. That one hit me very, very hard. And what actually happened was that I could not figure out how to get through the pain. It was physical. It was physical, it was mental, and it was emotional. It, like, the whole gamut. And I had been someone who had always bounced back, but this one, this one I couldn't come back from. And I didn't know then what was wrong with me. So I was fortunate enough to have someone in my circle who was a brilliant therapist. And she actually worked through some grief therapy with me. And what she told me, this is something that I had never heard before. Grief is cumulative. Cumulative simply means that it just builds. It builds and piles on top of itself, okay? So with every loss that I had lived through, I had, done what a lot of us do, and I had just gone on with my day, with my life, and pushed those feelings down. So then the next thing comes along, and anytime you lose anybody or anything that has value to you, you will have a grief response. There's nothing even a little bit unusual about that, okay? So with every loss, with every single difficult thing that I survived, I pushed down the pain just so that I could keep moving. Remember, I had that little boy. I had that little boy who needed his mom, right? I didn't have time. Didn't have time for the pain, right? People write stories and songs, and they make movies about this stuff, right? It's a truth. It's a basic human truth. Okay, so what happened when we lost my sister was that was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. There was nothing left. There was no room left. And so it broke open. And I found myself in this deep pile of grief with no idea which end was up. So this wonderful woman came along and she helped me to sort through. And what we worked on was one piece at a time. When you're facing this big mountain of problems, of feelings, of whatever it may be, it is overwhelming. It's so much to look at. So she helped me to take it apart one piece at a time until I could get functional again. And then I continued after that to do that work, to continue to work through those grief pieces that were still there. So that's what happened for me. And what I learned in that process was that it was necessary for me to allow the time and the space. Because, for example, if I had taken, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks or a month and allowed myself to do that, then I wouldn't have found myself a year later still struggling with those feelings and still struggling to get out of bed in the morning. Do you see what I'm saying? So allow yourself the time and space to process whatever it is that you need to feel. This also, it's important to say, can happen in pieces. So sometimes when we're going through, for example, a marriage ending, and that one is also one that I've experienced, so I can understand that pretty well as well. And sometimes it happens in waves, right? We think that we've got this piece figured out and solved and worked through. And so we move on to something else. And then maybe we find ourselves back here again, because sometimes it takes more than one go around. In the spiritual circles, they talk about, I think they call it the spiral. So we keep on coming back around to the same things so that we can heal them more and more and more. So it's a process that can take some time, okay? It can happen in pieces. Give yourself the time and space that you need. Step 2, get it out. So you can talk with people that you know, You can write, you can dance, you can exercise, you can walk, you can, whatever it is that will work for you. One of the things that I needed to do, I scream sang. So I had these CDs that I would put on in my car. And as the tears flowed down my face, I would scream along with the lyrics. And that was my way of processing and letting these things out. I also like to write. So those were things that helped me to get it out. So the trick about this is that, you know, that boogeyman story where the boogeyman's in the closet and it's big and scary and all of that sort of stuff. As long as the boogeyman is still in the dark and we can't see it, it's scary and it's big. And it's the same thing as those things that are in our head that we don't want to talk about. They get scary and they get big. As long as we keep them hidden, they get scary and they get big. But when we spit them out and we talk about them, they very often look different on the outside than they did when they were just rolling around in our head. Do you see what I'm saying? So get them out. Whatever you need to do, get them out. Step 3, acknowledge what it really is. Acknowledge whatever it is. Are you angry? Are you hurt? Do you feel betrayed? Do you feel sad? What is it that you feel? What is it that's really at the heart of the problem? What is the thing that's causing those feelings? Acknowledge. And again, we are not doing that beating ourselves up routine. That is not helpful to anybody. So from a place of curiosity, from a place of almost logic, I guess might be a way to put that into words, but from a practical way of like, what is the thing that I'm dealing with right now? Okay. Step 4 is the thing that we were talking about with the subliminal soundtrack. We shift our thinking. So reframe whatever the circumstances are in a way that is healthy for you, and then release. Reframe and release. And, you know, I'll be back on here at some point. Tonight's not the time to talk about forgiveness, but I'll be back on here another night and I'll do a talk about forgiveness there as well, because that's important. That's an important piece of this. There's a thing that we call alchemy. Now, if you have never heard of it before, alchemy simply is the word that we use for the process of taking one thing and turning it into another. So, you know, the story about Rumpelstiltskin and how he spun straw and turned it into gold. That is the process of alchemy. So you can take a rock and you can turn it into gold. You can take a hardship and turn it into a golden lesson or opportunity or a thing that will help you to move forward. When you become a master at this alchemy, what you actually do is you take whatever your circumstances are, whatever those things were that broke your heart or created that grief response. When you get really good at this, you take that thing and you turn it into something that will not only help you, but will help other people. That is when you know that you have mastered alchemy. Now, this is one of the things that was really hard for me to sort of come to grips with. Sometimes people do things that aren't even, they do them to us, but they're not about us. Do you see what I'm saying? So we seem to have, many of us, this idea that we get what we deserve. And I'm not saying that's not entirely true. Like there is some truth to that. And sometimes things happen that have nothing to do with us. So if you're in a position where somebody else has done something, whether it's your work, your home, your family, whatever it is, where someone else has done something that has caused you difficulty or pain or whatever the case may be, reframe this and understand that it has nothing to do with you. When people behave badly, especially if it's a situation where someone's behaved badly, that's about them. That really has nothing to do with you. It's not your responsibility. You didn't cause it. They're responsible for their own behavior. Do you see what I'm saying? So whatever has happened, is about them. It has nothing to do with you. That can help with that release, with that separation from whatever those feelings are. It's not, this has nothing to do with me. Do you see what I'm saying? So what we're doing here is we are building that soundtrack to help us. So every time we hit the ground and we shift a little bit and we shift a little bit more, we're going to bounce back higher and higher every single time, because you're building that muscle. You're building that resiliency as we are going through this. Okay. You're building all of this. Now, one very important thing to say is, if you need help like I did, there is no shame in asking for it. Go and see your doctor. Go talk to a counselor or a therapist, or reach out to the Give to Get crew here, because again, we are all here to support you in your journey, whatever that might be. Okay, reach out and let people know when you need help. We're not all psychic. So if you need help, it's your responsibility to reach out and ask for that and find someone who will give that to you. It might be, maybe you're blessed like me and you have an incredible community of people that are behind you no matter what happens. Reach out to your friends. And I want you to consider this, because I think Bruce and I may have had this conversation recently. If not, it was somebody else. But the thing of it is when you help someone you love, don't you feel good? Don't you feel better having offered some support or a shoulder to cry on or whatever it is? Don't you feel good when you have the opportunity to help someone else? So why don't we let that someone else have an opportunity to feel good like that by helping us? Think about that for a second, okay? It's not wrong to reach out for help. We are made as human beings to be like communal creatures. We are tribe people. Way back when, we are tribe. We are meant to come together as a community and support each other. So please don't try to go through these things alone. I promise you, if I had not found that wonderful therapist, it would have taken me a whole lot longer. And in all honesty, I don't know if I would have gotten back up. That's how hard that one hit me. So if you need help, please don't feel ashamed. Don't feel afraid. Go and ask for it. Someone will be there. Someone will be there. Throw out that ring, when you're drowning, you know what I'm talking about. Throw out the ring. All right. Or throw up a flare or something. Just let people know that you need some assistance and let them be there for you. And finally, our step 5 is bounce. Bounce as high as you can. And again, I mean, if you're starting on that Humpty Dumpty end of the scale, then maybe your bounce is just a little one. That's okay. That's okay. Pull yourself back up if you have to. Build that muscle. Remember, we build it by using it. So if all you've got is a little tiny bounce right now, as long as you're not shattering into a million pieces, awesome. Pull yourself back up. And again, if you need help to pull yourself back up, let somebody know. Let them throw you the rope for a change. All right. So your bounce is your last step in this process. Bounce back up as high as you can. And man, I promise you, when you get to that point, remember we talked about alchemy? When you get to that point where something will knock you down really hard and your bounce takes you way up high, it is something to celebrate. It is something to celebrate, and you should be proud of yourself at whatever stage you're in. All right. Get back up, celebrate, be proud of you. I'm proud of you even for trying. Reach out for help if you need it. Okay, so we've only got a few more minutes here, guys. So I want to share with you just a few more ideas that might help with this building of the resiliency muscle. So there is a thing that happens to a lot of us, especially those of us who are, I don't know, they call you type A or something like that, those personalities, right? The hard workers, the get things done people. And I'm one of those people. So One of the things that I have had to learn is to slow down and celebrate the little things. Celebrate those things, because that is also how you will build that, like, recognizing it is so important, isn't it? Recognizing that you've had any kind of success, recognizing that you already have been doing everything that you need to, recognizing that, here's one for you, recognizing that this thing that happened today knocked me down, but 5 years ago, it would have knocked me out. What about that? Little bit of progress, huh? Just a little bit of progress. If all you can do is baby steps will still get you there. Remember, we talked about that micro shift, 10 pages of a good book, baby step, baby step, baby step. It might take you a while, but that's okay. Because once you start to master this, the good news is that you don't stay down as long and you bounce higher every single time. You won't stay down as long. And when that happens and you realize it, I am telling you, it brings me so much joy. And I know that sounds really kind of cockeyed. When these challenges come along now, I embrace it. I embrace it because I know that I'm going to learn something valuable. I know that I'm going to survive it. I know that I'm going to find my way through it. I know because I've built that bulletproof belief in myself. It takes some time and it can take some support. All of that is okay. When we build a foundation for a house, we don't build it in like a split second. We don't expect the solid foundation to be there right now, right? And that's what we're doing. We're building that foundation for who we are becoming. We're building that foundation for the life that you want to have, for the things that you want to bring in, the relationships you want to have, the positivity, the joy, the gratitude that will allow you to have such a wonderful life, regardless of your circumstances. You see this sign back here? I keep on pointing at it. The reason that I bought this, and I bought this shortly after my marriage ended, was because this is how I live. It says that you can't see happiness at the top. So happiness is not a destination, it is a way of life. How's that for a mind shift? How's that? Happiness is a choice. So build that resiliency. Know that even when the hard stuff comes along, you're going to find your way through it and you're going to get back up on your feet. You're going to learn something valuable that you can carry with you into your life. Maybe you'll use that to help a friend. Maybe you'll use that to help a child or a grandchild, or, whatever your job is. Maybe you'll use that to help someone that you're working with. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it can become something that is valuable to share with others. You just have to have the right mindset. You just have to be willing to embrace the learning. Okay? Embrace the learning. So celebrate your successes. Celebrate that growth and that learning. Celebrate the strength and resilience that you are building every time you fall and get back up. The last thing that I want to leave you with is you've got this. Remember, you have a 100% success rate of surviving every single thing that life has thrown at you so far. You will find your way through whatever your circumstances are. And if you choose it, you can learn to bounce back on your feet, ready to go, or even better, to use whatever that circumstance is to cause you to soar up into the heights that you have never achieved before. So there's a quote that I'd like to leave you with, and then we will see if we have any questions. When we face difficult circumstances, it's perfectly normal to get knocked down. That's not the important part. The important part is getting back up. You are the only one who can decide the how and the when. Stay down or bounce back up on your feet, or even better, learn whatever you can from whatever took you down and use it to bounce back higher and stronger than you ever have before. It's completely up to you. What do you choose? All right, my friends, thank you so much for being with us. I don't know, Bruce, do we have any questions?
No questions today.
All right. Thank you all so much for being with us. I am just so privileged and so glad to be part of the Give to Get team. Thanks again for your time. I am Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert, and I will be back in another week or two, I'm sure. Have a great night.